So ever since Nicki Minaj made an appearance on stage beside Erika Kirk for a TPUSA event, she has garnered extreme backlash. From a petition to have her deported, which has garnered more than 80,000 signatures, to a revolt from the Barbs. Some of her most dedicated supporters on social media have turned against her because she spoke out about Christians being persecuted in Nigeria. And of course, aligning herself with the Trump administration. But most notably, after Nicki's appearance alongside Erika Kirk at this TPUSA event, the Trump administration dropped a bomb in Nigeria. Whether you support Nicki Minaj or you're somebody who signed off on that petition, I have a question for you. Do you know the history of what's actually happening in Nigeria and why it was so important to Nicki Minaj as a woman? When it comes to this specific issue, Moe is on Team Nicki because I've studied this for the better part of the last 20 years. What do you know about Boko Haram? And after learning about Boko Haram, will it change your opinion about Nicki Minaj? Because I think this counts as foreign policy experience, and it may catapult Nicki into the political realm. President Nicki is not a far-fetched idea. Because after her sit down with Erika Kirk, world leaders are turning their focus towards protecting Christians all over Africa. Let's discuss. All right, so let's go over a few things first. If Boko Haram, or the persecution of Christians in Nigeria, is a new thing to you, there may be a few reasons for that. And the most likely reason is probably your political affiliation. Unfortunately, we're in a time where even the treatment of human beings has become a political issue. And it goes back to the days of Obama, back when we used to call him Barack, right? When he initially was running for president, when he was going up against Hillary Clinton in the primary. This was around the time Boko Haram was in their heyday. If you remember these days the way that I do, you remember there was a lot of unnecessary criticism of Barack Obama. You know, everything from his heritage to his birth certificate, the tan suit. There was so much unnecessary criticism of Barack Obama that a lot of Democrats did not take conservatives seriously, even when they spoke about serious issues. That being said, the issue of Christians being persecuted in Nigeria and all throughout Africa altogether, it was the conservatives who took the lead on that. They were leading the charge as far as bringing awareness. My education on the issue came from talking heads on conservative talk radio, from Rusty Humphreys to Mark Levin to Sean Hannity. Rusty Humphreys in particular, it was something he spoke about regularly on a daily basis. And I believe that if you want the most in-depth coverage of what was happening with Boko Haram and the persecution of Nigeria and the open border policies in Nigeria that allowed this influx of extreme terrorists to come into the nation, you would have to go back and find those old conservative talk radio archives, the Rusty Humphreys archives in particular. And another reason that this issue was probably pushed to the side by a lot of figures in the media who lean liberal is because it was a very divisive topic as far as religion. Let them tell it, highlighting the persecution of Christians in Africa was a way to demonize Muslims and the Islamic faith. And I kind of agree with that, but at the same time, from the conservative talking heads that I was listening to, they always made it a conscious effort to call these terrorists radical Islamic terrorists. It was never an outright implication of Muslims or the Islamic faith. They made sure that they highlighted that it was the fringe. And these fringe terrorists were waging religious war against these people. Everything from pillaging to murder to rape. Take a listen to some of the testimony from actual victims who have been persecuted at the hands of Boko Haram in Nigeria.
To accompany the militants on operations, carrying bullets for them.
When they wanted me to kill the first man, my body was shaking and I fell down on the ground. They forced me to get up and watch as they killed the second person. At that point, I was thinking I should grab a gun from the insurgents and kill myself, since they taught us how to shoot.
I heard them yell Allahu Akbar, the Boko Haram battle cry, and I heard them try the door handle. It was locked, so they shot it off. And I thought, we're not going to make it out of here.
Friday night, I was sleeping in my house. See my house there. I come here, they shoot gun. Later, they come, they break this house. Where my brother, my brother is sleeping here with his children. Thereby, they come, they kill people. They were breaking the house. Say, Allah Akbar, Allah Akbar, Allah Akbar.
Now, the BBC, they did a good job at, putting a face on some of it. That was just a very small bit of what the Nigerian Christians have been going through for decades, right? But I still got a better understanding listening to it through the coverage of the conservative radio hosts back in the day, because they were talking to people in real time on the ground, and they gave what you can call more graphic details that it's a little bit much, but it does give you a thorough understanding of how barbaric these terrorists were behaving against these Christians in Nigeria. For example, you heard the testimony of the young lady about, how she had been forced to kill someone and what the terrorists were making her do. But when it came to the actual human trafficking and the use of these Nigerian Christian women for wholesale human trafficking, one of the most barbaric things that they were doing to the women, it's bad enough that they were raping them. However, they were taking it a step further. They were snipping off the clitoris of the women solely for the purpose of making sure that they did not even enjoy forced sex acts. Women and girls. And to hear the testimony of those particular victims was a lot. And I always wondered, why isn't the United States intervening? And even to this day, with Donald Trump launching a strike in Nigeria, it constitutes the very first time military action has been taken, because there are a lot of nations who have boots on the ground in Nigeria, but it's not for combat. What they do, they surveil the terrorists. They gather data and then they provide it to the Nigerian government to do something about it. So essentially, it's been the responsibility of the government of Nigeria to take action against these terrorists with data that has been collected by the French government or the United States. That's not enough. And Donald Trump is the first president to take military action against terrorists in Nigeria. Now, I've known about these things since, I want to say 2008, 2007, somewhere along there, but it didn't really become an American issue until Michelle Obama took action. And even that didn't take place until 2014, but it was because of her maternal instincts. Michelle Obama has 2 daughters. And the fact that Boko Haram took their terrorism to schoolgirls, it struck a nerve. And Michelle Obama felt compelled to say something. And when she did, Hollywood responded.
Hello, everyone. I'm Michelle Obama, and on this Mother's Day weekend, I want to take a moment to honor all the mothers out there and wish you a happy Mother's Day. I also want to speak to you about an issue of great significance to me as First Lady, and more importantly, as the mother of 2 young daughters. Like millions of people across the globe, my husband and I are outraged and heartbroken over the kidnapping of more than 200 Nigerian girls from their school dormitory in the middle of the night. This unconscionable act was committed by a terrorist group determined to keep these girls from getting an education. Grown men attempting to snuff out the aspirations of young girls. And I want you to know that Barack has directed our government to do everything possible to support the Nigerian government's efforts to find these girls and bring them home.
And it finally brought the worldwide focus to what Boko Haram had been doing in Nigeria that the conservative radio heads have been talking about for the better part of the last 10 years up until that time. So in short, you probably were today years old when you learned that Michelle Obama, Mark Levin, Rusty Humphreys, and Sean Hannity all agreed on one thing: saving Christians in Nigeria. Even if it takes a while for us to all get onto the same page, at the end of the day, we are all good people. And thanks to Nicki Minaj, something that we all agree on was finally done. Military intervention by the United States against those responsible for persecuting Christians in Nigeria. So what's the governor's take? Well, as governor of the state of Florida, let me tell you what Governor Moe would do. First and foremost, it is imperative that any governor in the United States follow the lead of the sitting president, no matter who it is, no matter what party you're affiliated with. If you're a Republican governor and there's a Democrat president, you follow the lead of the president. If you're a Democrat governor and there's a Republican president, you follow the lead of the president regardless. I'm no party affiliation, but it doesn't matter, because in order to achieve the success of the United States in general, the governor has to follow the lead of the president. Now, I've said this before, and if you're from Polk County and you were in attendance at the 43rd annual Pig Roast and Political Mingle and you listened to my speech, you probably think I had a crystal ball or something like that, right? Because everything that I said on that stage ended up happening. And the most important issue that I highlighted was the failure of a governor to follow the lead of the president. Case in point, Alligator Alcatraz, the worst idea in modern politics. So you might say, Mo, what does Alligator Alcatraz have to do with the interests of the United States and a governor following the lead of the president? Well, let me tell you what I said at the pig roast. One, I said Alligator Alcatraz was a horrible idea and that it wasn't working. But let's take a closer look. So President Trump got elected on the immigration policy that he proposed, right? I think it's safe to say Americans voted on the ideas for immigration enforcement that he proposed, getting rid of the drug dealers, stopping the drugs from coming into the country, etc. Well, the truth of the matter is, in order to effectively accomplish the goals that he set out, he needed the backing of individual states and the local governments. Because at the end of the day, the president's way up here proposing his ideas for immigration enforcement, but guess where the boots on the ground are coming from? The sheriff's office. Well, Governor DeSantis allocated $400 million, almost $500 million, to build this detention facility, Alligator Alcatraz. It has this scary name to it. They threw it up in a matter of days, even though the Sunrail cost the same price, and it took a couple years to even get it going. But whatever, right? They got this thing, this $400 million project just going up in a snap. I told the pig roast attendees that that same $400 million, probably less, would have been better spent hiring new sheriff's deputies who specialize in immigration enforcement. That way, you're not wasting resources rounding up kids in schools or construction workers or migrants who are actually making contributions to their communities here in America, right? You're actually going to sniff out the bad guys. At the time that I gave my speech at the pig roast, the day before, Florida Highway Patrol had seized hundreds of pounds in drugs. And I let them know Polk County is ground zero for drug trafficking. Why? Because Alligator Alcatraz wasn't working. And even though it deserves it, this is not necessarily a critique of Alligator Alcatraz. The problem is where the money went, because the optics and the actual achievements of the federal immigration policy were so horrible, the federal government had to go behind the backs of the sheriffs and offer $50,000 signing bonuses as incentives for sheriff's deputies to leave the sheriff's department and come and work for ICE. Who was the first person to call foul? Grady Judd. He said, hey, we're doing everything we can with what we have, and then you go behind my back and you take my sheriff's deputies. Well, this would not have happened under Governor Moe. We would have never built Alligator Alcatraz. What we would have done is use that same money to hire sheriff's deputies who specialize in narcotics training and immigration enforcement, the guys who actually know how to catch the drug dealers. Because when you really look at that Alligator Alcatraz, DeSantis touted 600 migrants being flown out, right? That's a little bit deceptive because of the 600 who were flown out, only 100 were actually deported. Now, in that short amount of time, that roughly equates to $4 million per detainee to deport. $4 million. So where did the other 500 detainees go? They went somewhere where they could actually have a court date and a hearing. And guess what happens when you go to a hearing and you don't have final deportation orders? You get released back into the country. Massive failure, massive waste of taxpayer dollars. But you know what was the most important thing I said at the pig roast? This whole Alligator Alcatraz nonsense was a result of a governor trying to outshine the president as opposed to following his lead. It's not supposed to be a competition. Follow the lead of the president. And I warned them, Florida was the face of immigration enforcement. And if this continued, you were going to see Democrats sweep the upcoming elections and you were going to see them sweep the midterms. Well, what happened? The Democrats swept the upcoming elections, and guess what? They're probably going to sweep the midterms. And Alligator Alcatraz is to blame because it made the president look like a fool. It made the president look like he didn't know what he was doing. The answer is simple. Stop making it a competition. With that being said, if the president has essentially taken a position to where Nigeria is to be sanctioned and military action taken against them, what is a governor expected to do if the president is to be successful on this front? Sanctions. As it relates to sanctions, as governor, let me tell you what I would do. In order to align the state of Florida with federal interests, there's 3 primary issues we can address. 1, state pension divestment. 2, prohibitions on public contracts. 3, trade and export, which we do a lot of that with a lot of different nations. And we can even go after university and research restrictions. What we would first have to do is declare any businesses or companies with ties to Nigeria or Nigerian companies specifically as what's known as scrutinized companies. The state of Florida has already done this with multiple countries already, but we can do this with Nigeria and prohibit any further business dealings because you gotta hit the pockets. Next, when it comes to infrastructure and bidding, which they didn't allow to happen during the construction of Alligator Alcatraz, but we can bar any company that has business ties to Nigeria from getting any public contracts with the state of Florida. This is effective because it will force those companies to either cut their own ties with Nigeria or go and try to get a bidding contract from them. Now, we have something in Florida known as Select Florida, and there's 2 ways that Select Florida could be used to sanction Nigeria. One is to close any and all African regional offices. But Select Florida has a lot of grants. It's not hard to say if you're a business looking for a grant opportunity with Select Florida and you've got business dealings in Nigeria or you expect to have some in the future, no grants for you. And when it comes to our colleges and universities, Florida law already prohibits anybody from conducting business with countries of concern. Putting Nigeria on that list, as long as they're allowing this persecution of Christians, will effectively terminate any contracts pending or otherwise. In short, the state of Florida is very important for any country or business that's worth its salt. I mean, we're a peninsula, so guess what that means? We have ports. We do a lot of trade. And quite frankly, if any state in this nation was more equipped to hit the pockets of countries of concern, it's the state of Florida. And if the president says sanctions, guess what? Governor Moe's going to say sanctions. And if that's what it takes to protect Christians on the other side of the globe, that's what Moe's going to do. Following the leader. That's all it takes for this nation and this state to be successful. And you know what? I believe that there was a mole at the pig roast because when I highlighted how DeSantis is essentially to blame for the federal government's PR crisis when it came to the immigration issue, somebody told him, because right after that, he tweeted and deleted a post that says, when Trump leads, DeSantis follows. And I'm like, now why did he tweet that? And it was a picture of him standing behind Donald Trump. And it was because somebody there that was in attendance told him, hey, there's a candidate you need to be worried about because his message is resonating with the voters. And they probably told him the whole kit and caboodle because after I gave my speech, I went in the hallway and started dancing. And folks were coming out there dancing with me. And my wife told me, because she was in there, handling the kids, she told me that a lot of the other people who didn't come out there and start dancing were coming up to her like, is he a Democrat or a Republican? I ain't voting for him if he's a Democrat. But people who had initially walked past my table after I spoke, they came to my table, they grabbed fans, they grabbed books, they grabbed cars, they grabbed everything that they could. And somebody relayed that message to him like, hey, Moe is in the race. And I think I know who it was. I'm not going to say his name because I might be wrong, but I got a pretty good idea of who was giving the rundown about what happened at the pig roast. And DeSantis wasn't the only person who had eyes on the situation because I also said at the pig roast, I'm going to abolish HOAs. We're not modifying them. We're not going to create any alternatives. They're gone. We might leave something around to where you can opt in because some HOAs are actually pretty good, but there's a lot of corruption in the HOAs. So I'm going to abolish them. Right after the pig roast, Juan Porras introduces legislation to abolish HOAs. Imagine that. So all this tells me is that I have the knowledge base to govern effectively, and the state of Florida's got a damn good choice for the next governor of the state of Florida. With that being said, if you want to volunteer for my campaign, download my app, MoeGBT, fill out an application within the app to become a Mojo, and you can Mojo right from within the app by phone banking and helping us out with our voter outreach initiative. You can watch my movies and a documentary on the Post nightclub shooting on Roku by adding my Roku app Moe and getting a better understanding for the no party affiliation candidate who's asking to serve you as the 47th governor of the state of Florida. I love you all. And we're actually about to start cranking up the live shows, and you guys are going to be able to call in. I'm thinking about Monday through Friday, starting at 10 a.m., maybe 10 to 12, and take calls and get you guys' input on what the future of the state of Florida looks like to you. With that, I think when it comes to Erika Kirk, if anybody was doubting her ability to lead TPUSA after the passing of her husband, I say that after her conversation with Nicki Minaj, all doubts have been erased. She's clearly more powerful than Charlie ever was, meaning a sit down with Erika Kirk should be on everybody's agenda. Erika, if you get wind of this video, I'd love to have a sit down with you and talk about these judges here in Orlando in the 9th Judicial Circuit, the local corruption, the election rigging, you name it. And maybe in 24 hours we can get something done about that. And to Nicki Minaj, I believe somebody needs to nominate you for the Nobel Peace Prize in the event that the Trump administration establishes peace in Nigeria and ends the persecution of the Christians in Nigeria, because like I've demonstrated in this video, this has been a conversation that's been going on for 20 plus years and nothing was done until you said something about it. And I would love to have you on my show so that we can talk about this, because I know you haven't taken credit for what happened, but you deserve it. And I would love to be the first person to get your thoughts on what you have accomplished. Till next time, folks, I love you all, and I'll see you on the next one.